Mr. Anissa Sadiq, Treasurer. Mr. Duncan Moncrief, the Chief of Staff, here. Ms. Sushane Williams, the SGA Center for Public Relations. Ms. Jasmine Seymour, the Center Director for Community Relations. Mr. Ike Okunike, the Center Director of Academic Affairs. Mr. Taywan Tatum, the Center Director of Athletics. Ms. Minat Lawal, one of the Senators for College-Wide Forum. Mr. Marvin Romero, another Senator for College-Wide Forum. Ms. Rachel Myers, the Senator for College-Wide Forum. Ms. Lanika Perso, the Campus Activity Board's President. And I'll proceed to the introduction of our special guests here today. Dr. Charlene Dukes, the President of the College. Mrs. Kathy Camp, the Interim Vice President of Student Affairs. Dr. Foreman, the Dean of Student Success and Engagement. Ms. Paulette McIntosh, the Program Director of the Office of Student Engagement and Leadership.
Come here. Come here.
Ms. Michelle Richardson, the Program Director for the Wellness Center.
Come here.
And Mr.
Hold the phone.
And Mr. Henry Dixon, the Director
Don't cover
of
the microphone.
Design and Construction, Facilities Management. As we said, can you please go over the agenda items? Someone makes a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to officer reports. Will be my report. Someone second that, please? All in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? The motion carries. All right, so we are gonna have Dr. Dukes come talk to us about an issue we all heard about during the week. So she just wants us to know that she has our best interest and that she heard about it and it's been taken care of. So that being said, can you please give a round of applause to Dr. Dukes?
So good afternoon, everyone, and I'm glad you all are here. I hope that we'll try to do some walking around so that you can see us. We do have a few other members of the college team with us, and I'm not going to remember everyone, so if I don't call your name, introduce yourself. We have Thelma Ross, who is the Director of Financial Aid. We have Deidre Gibson, who's with our facilities area in construction and renovation and planning and the like. You've already met, I think Henry was already introduced. We have Professor Michael Smith, who is the department chair for information technology, computer science, and a lot of other stuff that if we have the opportunity, he'll talk about. We have Angie Cruz, who is the Senior Director of Communications and Marketing, and she's joined by Tabrisha, I always call you Tabrisha Langham, who also works in that area. And we also have with us the Chief of Police, Chief Lee James. And what I'd really like to do is to have the chief start, and then we'll all chime in as the need arises, and we'll certainly open the floor for questions either from the SGA representation or certainly you all as students. So Chief, and you'll give us a history, a little bit of history and background regarding what we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President. And thank you, Mr. President, for inviting me. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, we can do better than that. Good afternoon, everybody. All right. So let me tell you guys a little bit. I've been here for about 4 months now, and as some of you have met me before, I also teach here. I've been here teaching on the staff for about 21 years. So this is my school. I love my school, and this is the school where I'm ending up now. I've been to a couple other schools, but this is the place where I want to be. So as you guys know, in my line of business, certainly, police officers encounter a lot of tough situations. And last Wednesday, we encountered a situation with a student in the dining area. And one of the things I will say about that situation is that it is under investigation. I'm really trying to learn from everybody that was there what they observed, what they saw, what occurred, so that we can do a proper investigation. We've done several investigations since I've been here, but one of the things that I've really learned is to rely upon the evidence that we get. And usually that calls for us to ask for anybody that was in the lounge, the dining area on last Wednesday evening, somewhere between 5 and about 6 p.m. Because one of our officers had an encounter with a student, and I know there were a lot of people in the dining area, and we're trying to get as much perspective as we can on it. So when we get a situation like that, certainly we try to work as close as we can, not only with the SGA, with student services, and certainly with the Office of the President, to make sure that all the resources that we need are being brought to bear, to make sure that they're fair, and to make sure that we're looking at this case judiciously. I've had the opportunity this week to talk to a couple people in the case, and it's still under investigation. Is one thing I learned about cases is that you want to take your time to make sure that you get some good perspective on it. And one of the things that I'm hoping that could come out of this is that we forge a better relationship. When I say we, I mean not only us as a college community, but campus, college police, as well as our students. I've been meeting with Paulette a couple of times this week, and certainly with Edward. And there are a couple of things that I would hope that as we look at the student code of conduct and we look at things that we're supposed to do, whether we're faculty, staff, or students, or other, that we're in line with the code of conduct and the things that we're supposed to do. But along with that, my expectation would be that we're respectful of each other. I know sometimes we're not always going to agree, and sometimes we've got to agree to disagree. But in looking at the totality of the case that I'm working on now, it'll take me a few more days before I find all the people that can give me some information before I'm able to draw a conclusion. And what I'm looking to hope to do with this case is, not only forge a better relationship with students, but really look at it as an opportunity for us to maybe get some students to work closer with us. One of the things I've been kicking around with Paulette is an advisory council, so that as a community with students, faculty, and staff, we can get ahead of some issues that we see, because quite frankly, we can't be everywhere. And sometimes, students and faculty and staff see things a lot differently than security folks. So that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do, working closely with Edward and his team to recruit a few students to work on an advisory committee with me, along with faculty and staff. The other thing I'm working on, working with the Office of Communications, we're producing some short videos that are going to be pushed out on social media, really talking about some crime prevention measures that we would like you to keep in mind. For example, if you're in the library working or you're anywhere working with your electronics, we want to make sure that you take your electronics with you if you have to leave. So we're shooting out these 4 messages, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks, to sort of give you some reminders. One of the other things that I heard about recently was the fact that students were asking about active shooter training. And, you know, you hear about active shooters all the time across this country. It seems to be, we're in a crisis mode, whether you're in a church, whether you're in a grocery store, or whether you're somewhere else where you're subject to being the victim or at least witnessing an active shooter incident. And certainly with the experience I've had at other colleges, we need to be in a better mode to prepare our students, faculty, and staff to be able to take some precaution in the event we have something like that. And I was explaining to the cabinet earlier today the initiative that we've undertaken, but one of the pieces I want to add to that is training for our students, awareness for our students. So one of the things we're going to be working with Edward and Paulette and their team on is some awareness sessions. And it'll give you an opportunity to ask questions, you know, what's the best strategy if I'm in this classroom or whatever. And so let me just give you a quick example. In the class that I teach now, one of the first things we do on the first night is we go through a quick drill. The building I'm in is Bladen. So Bladen Hall is predominantly a concrete building. And so one of the things I teach the students is if something happens regarding an active shooter is we're going to be turning this light off. We're going to be turning that projector off. We're going to be taking cover. And we're going to be locking that door and we'll be calling 911 because we want people to know where we are. My job at that point is to protect my students. And that's something I'm going to make sure that we do. And we go through that a couple times during the semester. So it's things like that we kind of want to remind you to keep in mind because they're so prevalent nowadays. And then the last thing before I take a couple questions, if you don't mind, is I wanted to invite the leadership of the SGA. Every year, college police has a advanced officer training session. And we bring in different speakers to talk about new topics, changes in the law, new tactics, things like that. And one of the things that I'm able to do is invite guests in to train our officers, to help our officers. So when we talk about better relations between students and officers, that's one of the things that I would really love SGA and OCEL to be a part of. Certainly, you know, with my experience at other schools, I've done this before and I've seen this before. And it really works well to forge a good relationship as we go forward. So those are some of the things that are going on with us. And it kind of, some of the things that are going on with the investigation, you know, certainly I can't go into any detail about that, but I think it's going pretty well right now. But there's some lessons that I'm hoping to learn that I can apply that can make it, the environment here a little better for all of us. And with that, you know, I'll be open to taking some questions from students or anybody really that has a question.
Thanks for that, for all the suggestions and measures you give us. But I also think the students here today want to hear your own version of the incident reported and give some input. So maybe you tell us how you perceive the incident that happened last week, and then the students can.
Okay, without any, you know, without jeopardizing the investigation,
Right.
One of the things I will say is, what I look for is witnesses that can give me perspectives. What did you actually see? What actually happened? And then try to learn, you know, if there was a communications breakdown, if there was something that the officer did that was out of kilter with what we're accustomed to. And then how do we fix that if that is the case? And then, you know, with that situation in particular, there were a couple cameras around, so I'm looking at video evidence to try to learn from different perspectives what's really going on. So without going into details, because, you know, it's a personnel issue, those are some of the things I'm looking at. That's why it's really important that if there is anybody here, or you know anybody that has any information that would benefit me, certainly, or benefit the investigation, certainly I would be open to that.
Does anyone have any questions? Or does anyone want to testify to what happened last week?
Testify. But you know what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, as we move forward, and get to this, get to a better place, I'd like to come back and report on some progress.
Let me see that after.
That's okay. Great.
Because we're here to hear from you and answer the questions that we can or get back to you. If you don't ask us anything and then everybody walks out and you have little conversations in the hallway or in the dining hall or, you know, in your club office, then we can't deal with the issue. So this is really what this is about, what concerns you have, and then we're all here. We have folks who are taking notes. It's about safety and security. It's about policy procedure. It's about do we need to think about some rules differently? And we know that students are adults, so this is not what this is about. You know, it's not about you treat us like kids or whatnot, because if you go to any college campus, they're gonna have rules. They're gonna have policy, they're going to have procedure. We are no different than Bowie State, University of Maryland College Park, Johns Hopkins, Howard University. Those are, at least Johns Hopkins and Howard, are where the chief has been the chief of police before. So he's bringing his experience with us, not just as a faculty member, but having been a lifelong officer of the law. But how do you apply that on college campuses, which could be very different than what happens out in the community. I will tell you that every couple of years, there's some incident that occurs where the ire of all of us goes up and we say, okay, what do we learn from that? And how do we keep working to ensure it doesn't happen again? So we do want to hear from you, and this is the time. So having taken 2 minutes of your time, I'll give you 2 minutes back.
I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Devontae Renary. I'm a psychology major. And from my own perspective, I wasn't actually there, but I've seen many videotapes. Of course, I'm pretty sure you guys know everybody in this room probably saw the videotapes. And from what I heard, she was told to get up off a young man's lap. And I don't know if I can speak about, can I speak about this? I understand you said something about the investigation.
Yeah, well, I mean, you wouldn't there, so.
Okay. So I was told she was told to get off a young man's lap, and she refused. And later on, after I heard all about that, I did look into the student code or whatever, and I did find out that public protection is against the ruling. But conversations with my friends, I feel as if he could have handled that a little bit better. Like in regards to the fact, the timing of when it happened, it was supposed to be the time that's supposed to be closed anyway. So he could have simply dismissed the whole case, so everybody would just walk away instead of actually putting his hands on her and all of that. I do understand she was resisting arrest. I don't want everybody to say that. She was resisting arrest and kind of making a scene, but he could have handled that better, and that could have been avoided. He could have been here right now. That's my answer.
And that's one of the things, you know, when I look at the videotapes, I read statements and I talk to people, those are some of the things that are going through my mind. Couldn't we have handled this a little differently? You know, in a lot of the cases that I've seen, where there were disputes between officers and students who are faculty or staff or whoever, a lot of times it comes down to communication and really how do we communicate. So hopefully, you know, those are some of the things that I'm hoping that through the things that I'm seeing, that I'm able to say, well, you know, maybe we could have done this a little differently. And some of the measures I talked about, where I talked about SGA maybe joining us for some training and wholesale and things like that, that's all a part of it, because I think, you know, at the end of the day, we all have to, you know, be here in this one community, and work together, go to school together, and do what we do. And so I think it's very important that if there are lessons to be learned, that we learn those and apply those across the board. And things, you know, things are, for police officers, things are dynamic, they're changing, and you know, in the moment, you know, things can be very chaotic. But part of my job is to reflect on what we see and how can we do things better so that, you know, we can all exist in this place we call Detroit's Community College.
I just wanted to say something. I know there was an incident occurred the day before involving the same officer, and one of the lessons from that, I wanted to highlight the student groups who were using the facility. They had it reserved. The officer was unaware. So I wanted to point out to students, if you have a facility reserved after hours, because this lounge usually closes at 6, and they were there after 6 o'clock, to make sure that you have a hard copy of the confirmation that was sent to you from scheduling event management, so that you can show that. If that was the case, it was just going back and forth. Students were frustrated. They said, but we have it, who do we talk to? And you weren't getting the information, so then it escalated. So I just wanted to point that out, that to make sure that you have your confirmation with you. In this case, the students did a good job in giving up, so I was able to get involved and then to just kind of troubleshoot that situation. I do want to emphasize that. If you have a space reserved, make sure you have a printed copy to show that you have the space reserved.
I was present when the old incident happened. So a day before this actual incident occurred, I think the same officer, right, was also telling one of them to get off of that. But the first thing they asked was, is he like, because it said it was a code of conduct, so they were asking him back. And the day that this actually happened, he was like, let's say someone over there, and we were all the way down here, and he saw it, and he was yelling from where it was, get off him. And she was like, it's my boyfriend. But he was still like, get off him. She stood up, but she was still like, is it a rule? Like, have I just committed an offense or something? And the next thing I just know is they started going back and forth. Yes, the officer also used curse word on her, and she did it too on him. That's fair? Now, proceeding on. He said for her to leave the cafeteria. She was ready to leave, and we, her friends too, we know that what was going on, okay, was already escalating, and we were also ready to leave with her. So as she was leaving, we said, say one more thing, and she said, I'm sorry, is a word? I didn't even open my mouth to say it. And the next thing we knew was, we went to her and, grabbed her. I understand that this was already, stepping over, but at the same time, she was choked. She had bruises over her hand. That day, the next day, it was still visible. And I really like the action that was taken towards the officers, thanks for that, but I still feel like further investigation should be taken
and what I will say is, first of all, thank you for that perspective. And one of the things I'll say about this officer is that he's a new officer with us, and he's got a lot of learning to do. And that means we have a lot of training to do. Because at the end of the day, we really want to make sure that our officers are treating our students, faculty, and staff in the right manner, and that we're all in compliance with the rules, whether it's code of conduct or whatever. So thank you for that perspective. And we do have a card for you if you want.
I think if I could too, and I don't want to under or over speak this. We're all in this community together, all right? We're all in this community together. We together can escalate a situation, or together we can calm a situation down. And that's what we all have to remember. We understand, we live in the same world that you all do. We understand that sometimes the town-gown relationships can be tough. We understand that campus police and student relationships can be tough. We understand that campus police or college police and employee relationships can be tough. but we all have a responsibility around that. So sometimes we want to say, am I doing something too that is adding to the already escalated event? And how can I step away for a moment? And I have a son. My son always thinks he has to have the last word, whether it's, you know, or whatever. And we have to think about those kinds of things. As the president, I don't always take the last word because I understand I could, but I understand that sometimes I need to think about and hear what people are saying to me, rather than responding from where I am in my own head, in my own place. This is not about who's at fault or who isn't at fault. It's about how do we come together as a community and understand what we can contribute positively to a situation, to what we're hearing and what we're learning. And if we decide we just want to stand in the corner with our arms folded and say, well, we'll see what they do, but if that happens to me, here's what I'm going to do. I know we're also joined today by the student member of the Board of Trustees, Marcellus Kirkland. Marcellus has been just as concerned, and many of us found out within hours of the situation occurring last Wednesday, because I had the opportunity to talk about it with him and other members of the Board of Trustees. I just think we have to figure out how we do this as a college community and what all of that means. How do you all understand what the Code of Conduct actually says? Because we give it to you in a number of formats. You get it online, you get it in a hard copy book. You know, you can go online, ambiguous, and as you bring those things to our attention, we decide that that's not even appropriate for a college community, or we eradicate the ambiguity, which means we rewrite it so that it's clear and that we all understand and interpret things the same way. So I think that it's important that if you saw it, if you were there, that you talk to the chief. Take a moment, you can call him. You don't have to talk about it today. You can call him. And I believe you're actually leading the investigation, am I correct? So it hasn't been assigned to anybody else on our police force. So that'll be important. If there are other things that are occurring that you think that you have a bit of a question about, how do we deal with that? You know, when we ask about IDs and show your ID and whatnot, we want to make sure you have a legitimate right to be here. We understand we're an open campus and that people are coming through, visiting because they have a purpose here, a business here, and some people come in to hang out because they don't have anything to do all day and they wait for you to get out of class. You know, well, what I would prefer is they go down to the admissions office and talk about how they can think about furthering their education. And then you have a legitimate purpose for being here on campus every day. But I think it's about all of us forming that community that the police chief has talked about, and what does that mean, and how can we keep these kind of dialogues going, but action as well, because dialogue without action is just talking, right? Edward, somebody else had a comment, I think, and after this young lady, Marcellus, okay?
Hello, my name is Rita, and well, I'm a student who has a.
So you are the young lady who was actually involved?
Yeah.
Have you had the opportunity to talk to the chief?
He came to see me yesterday right before my class, but I had to go to class, and he told me to call, so I just know what's going on.
Well, he might want to talk to you because quite frankly, he may need to take your statement before you give your statement in front of 50 or 60 people, because it has the potential to taint the investigation. And that's the only thing that I would ask you, is that you not speak into the microphone about the incident, that you actually talk to the chief and allow him to do the work that I've asked him to do. Will that work for you? And he'll be prepared to talk to you. He'll take you out now if you like, or he'll talk to you as soon as this is over. I appreciate it, all right?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Chief James, thank you again for being here. Yes, sir. And so my question is not only in regards to this situation, but to all situations that involve encounters between civilians and police officers. What are some actions that a civilian
may do or commit that we may not see as threatening, but an officer may view it as a threatening action and would, to him or her, warrant that type of aggression. And I think that would be something that, if we could all be cognizant of that, we could do a better job on our part, ensuring that things like this don't happen.
Okay, good question. Let me preface the answer by saying this. About 3 weeks ago, I got invited to a church in North Brentwood, First Baptist in North Brentwood, and we had about 125 men, African American men, asked the same question. Myself, Glenn Ivey, and the chief of police at Bowie State University. So we spent about 2 hours answering that question because there are a number of things that police officers are looking for things that could be threatening, things that could hurt them, things that seem out of kilter. So there's so many things, whether it's on a traffic stop or a pedestrian stop or whatever, that police officers are trying to be aware of. And sometimes it depends on who the officer is and who the person is and what situation they're in. I tend to think, and we could talk about this forever, obviously, but I tend to think that here on the campus, we're in a little better of a world than, if we're up in the city somewhere, hanging out on a corner somewhere. And so one of the things that I try to do with the officers is make sure that we're giving students, faculty, and staff the benefit of the doubt when it comes to things. And part of that is about community policing and really getting to know who we are, who's on our campus. Just like Dr. Goose was saying a few minutes ago, because we're an open campus, and this is the third open campus I've worked at, you have the potential for people coming through doing criminal stuff, looking to steal stuff that belongs to students, etc. And so part of what we're trying to look at is trying to minimize those kind of things by getting to know our students, getting to know our faculty and staff, etc. But just, the bigger answer to your question is really, there are a lot of things that people do, furtive movements that people do, especially around traffic stops, but not necessarily on college campuses. Because, for the most part, people come here to do, 99% of the people come here to go to school, or go to work, or teach. And so, when it comes to some of the things that police officers are looking for, is when things don't look right. When, for example, there's it's the middle of the summer, and you're wearing a trench coat, and there's a big bulge in your under the trench coat. That could be the possibility that somebody's carrying a shotgun or something like that. So it's just a number of things like that we talked about that Saturday, and that's something that we can probably talk about at great length, and we could probably do some workshops on it here.
Well, again, in regards to a situation very similar to the one that took place yesterday, I know there's a fine line between exercising your rights as a citizen and possibly being hostile towards an officer or disrespectful, things of that nature, conducting yourself in a disorderly way, which I know can be a cause for arrest. So again, in regards to a situation such as this specific, not trying to accuse a young lady of anything, but just what are some things that could possibly go wrong from the civilian's point of view that they might do and not understanding that are threatening?
Yeah, and like just respecting what you said, not putting her in the picture, and if been anybody else, I think the way that the communication flowed between both, between the officer and the person, whoever it was, I think that kind of sets the level for what comes next. And then, using a modicum of discretion, because, in my mind, I tend to give the people that go to school here, work here, the benefit of the doubt. And that's one of the things that we're trying to teach the officers. Some of our officers come from the street. In other words, they worked at other departments where, they're keyed up and ready to arrest the first person they see, they think doing something wrong. Well, on a college campus, it's got to be a little more measured. And that's why we try to emphasize a community policing philosophy, and really getting to know people that you're responsible for protecting.
Like
and
up there?
serving. So in that situation, I
It doesn't
really think
matter.
that it came down to the communication mind, somebody that wasn't there looking at all the evidence, hoping that we can learn some lessons. Thank you. Yes, sir. Any more questions? Go.
Good afternoon. I already been this campus since August, my first year. And being on this campus, I've noticed like a lot of public display, affection. And most of the time, there are police present, but they, choose not to say nothing. But this situation, they decided to. And I respect police like 100%, like 24/7. But is it fair to say that, sometimes they may like pick and choose when to exercise their right, or if this isn't like a level, like how bad it is for them to intervene or say something? I know there's some things across the line, but is there a fine line they have to cross, or it's just whenever they want to like choose to exercise their right?
And hopefully through this investigation, I'm hoping to learn why did this get to that place? And that's one of the things I'm hoping to learn, because police officers have something called discretion. Okay, so that means you have the authority to enforce the law, you have the authority to enforce the code, et cetera, et cetera. Some choose not to, or to maybe do something different in terms of trying to de-escalate the situation. But hopefully through this investigation, I'm hoping to learn something that will teach me, and so that I can probably pass on to others. What brought this to this place? Why did this escalate to that place? And I think a lot of it, in my mind, comes down to communication. How did this thing play out? And why did it get to that level? One of the things that police officers now are really being prompted to partake in is de-escalation as opposed to escalating. So that's one of the things I'm really, really interested in. Dr. Deuce like this. I already got a couple of people that called me about training my officer how to better use what they call verbal judo to try to de-escalate a situation.
And there's a gentleman who had a question. Well, there he is. Yeah. And yeah.
So when you saying like you hire the police to work on the campus, are you saying that when you get them from different departments, are they already predetermined to use excessive force when they come here from their departments?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I mean, you might have already answered it, but like I know certain police departments, they handle situations differently, but like hiring more police officers from local communities might work better than like transferring officers from other counties and stuff, because they handle situations differently.
Well,
They're not always used to de-escalating, they're used to escalating situations indirectly.
yeah.
They use more aggressive force than,
Well,
let's say, somebody that's more.
Most of the officers that work for us here now are Prince George's County residents, number one. Number two, once they apply for the job and they're selected, they're hired, then they have to go through the academy over here, Municipal Training Academy. Then they've got to comply with the Maryland Police Training Commission standards. So you can't say that I wouldn't say that there's a predisposition for excessive force. And then the second point to that is that because we're a college campus, right? And 99% of the people come here to go to school, or to work, or teach. The chances are that we need more officers that have that orientation, that community policing type of orientation. But it works both ways. And the way that works is that interaction, dialogue with the people that you serve and protect. That's critical, and that's really important. Absolutely.
From the police officers and from the citizens.
Absolutely.
These officers seem to think that they had the right to speak to anyone, however they want to speak to them. At whatever time, you're supposed to shut up as the citizen. I mean, don't you have a freedom to speak? I mean, if there were reason for it. But if you exercise that freedom with a police officer, he's bound to arrest you. because he has the authority to do so. And a lot of the time, they abuse their authority. And as a result, people, their lives are shooken up, and they have to keep themselves out of trouble. And really, they haven't done anything. It's just an officer who's having a bad day, and it doesn't have the authority to arrest you. He exercised it, even though it was no just cause. He in his mind knows it was just cause, but I mean, do you think that training in the police academy is sufficient for an officer to have the authority to shake someone's life?
I think that training, not only in the police academy at the beginning, but continual training is necessary for officers to remember, number one, to respect, and then to treat everybody. Here's what I always tell people. Try to treat people the way you would expect to be treated. That's exactly what I tell my officers. Because if you think about it in that perspective, then it changes the perspective a little bit. Because when you start thinking about how you would feel if somebody is disrespecting you, is talking down to you, and then have the authority to take you into custody, I think that's one of the areas that, fortunately, because we're on a college campus, I have a better opportunity to train our officers that way. And because we're a smaller department, it gives me the opportunity to touch each one of the officers in that way and to try to keep them professional. Because that respect is certainly one of the things that everybody expects, whether you're an officer or civilian. And then the other thing is, because we're here on the campus, and we're a smaller agency, it also gives me an opportunity to measure that and to hold people accountable when they step over the line. And that's one of the things that we did, with this case, is that we're making sure that as we investigate this, if there are things that need to be corrected, that we correct them with that also.
I have a statement behind here.
I'm sorry.
Speaking on the incident that Ms. McIntosh mentioned earlier, with the officer that happened in Hollisley, what she said earlier about respect, the way that the officer handled the situation, he automatically came in and he was hostile. He had an attitude, and I feel like if you want respect from somebody, you can't come into a situation being hostile and shouting at me. Because I was just trying to get information from him, and he's coming at me, attacking me with all this hostility. And if you're being hostile towards me, how can I get information from you when you're telling me to leave and I did reserve the space? And I'm asking you, so who do I go speak to find out if they told you? Granted, the person might not have passed the information on, but yes, it's your job to clear us out of here. But the situation most definitely could have been handled better with words.
Absolutely.
And not that much hostility.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing I would say, and I agree with you, respect begets respect. And as we look into this case and this officer in particular, if there are things that he did that were out of kilter, I want my officers to treat every one of my students with respect. But you're right. If you approach somebody the wrong way, that's the escalation we just talked about. When in fact you should be trying to de-escalate and trying to communicate effectively. One more and then we're wrapping it up. And then we got other presenters.
I had a question. Are officers allowed to do random backpack checks?
What you say?
Are they allowed to do random backpack checks?
Random background checks?
Backpack.
Oh, backpack checks. Only if there is a reason to do that, like a probable cause to do that. If for example, we had a situation recently where we were told about a student having a gun in a backpack. So that would necessitate us having to do that backpack check.
So, we have somebody else, Mr. Kirkland, who hasn't had a chance, so she's the lady here.
Hello, I'm Miss Johnson. I've been here for a while and I've seen a lot of stuff that's been going on compared to what the chief said. This is my first time seeing them. But I'm looking at it like this. It's not about the students, it's not about the police, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the community, so like you said, what was the thing was saying. A lot of the students that walk around all day, if you say you're in class, like you were saying, you have to have an ID. And I've seen a lot of police or security God, whatever you want to call it. I'm supposed to, if you don't have your ID, go to this school. You don't go to the school with your ID. And I know a lot of y'all like, I'm old school, so I'm not talking about anybody. I'm just addressing what I've always seen since I've been here. And what they planning and trying to say is that y'all come to school to do what y'all told. And a lot of y'all don't want to be like scattered with the police. Like some of them said they off the street, I don't know how to see police out compared to community college or university college. So if you have your ID, you come to school, like you were saying, security guard or police, you see the name tag, passport. And if that don't work, go to the dean. They can go from there. And if you take a picture, if they allow the video, I don't know how the procedure works. But a lot of times the students are doing a lot of hanging, and that's why they upset like you said. Don't stay there, move on. So keep our school up the call, and not let it go down. Some schools, whatever happened in the parking lot in the building, or what it is, it happens. What's that? We've been on the news a couple times. Y'all want to go to school, y'all want to graduate, y'all need to put your head in the book. Boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whatever. Y'all really need to get it together. I'm sorry, but I'm on being nice with y'all. Good day.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no, I just want to say thank you all. This is not over in terms of the dialogue. The chief has indicated a couple of things. If you were eyewitnesses, please come to him and be prepared to talk about what you saw. And I think the other thing he's asked that he will work through Edward and the leadership of the Student Governance Association around an advisory board that would be comprised of students and faculty and staff. And who we really want are students who are having issues. Because we want to know what are those issues and how do you sit at the table and help to resolve them. You know, so Edward, you know, I appreciate everything you do, but Edward's not having an issue. You know, he can represent your voice, but we need people who've had encounters and to be able to sit at the table and say, how can this work better? What do each of us contribute to a positive environment or a negative environment? So we're happy that we came. We'll always come back. I'm usually here every month anyway, and we just want to thank you for the conversation and the dialogue, and the chief will remain in contact with Edward and with Ms. McIntosh about how we're proceeding with regards to this particular situation.
Hey, thank you guys for participating in this piece. I know you got another, a whole bunch of other people to present. But thank you guys, and like President Dix was saying, if you know anything and you want to share with me, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with you guys at any particular time so that we can try to get to the bottom of this. But the bottom line for me is, how do we continue to grow Prince George's Community College to be a better, safer environment that we all can work, live, and go to school in? Thank you guys.
Thanks to you, James, for all your time and answering the questions. I do know certain students had questions to ask, but I would ask that you just keep those questions for the discussion part of this meeting, so we can proceed with the other agenda items. One thing I want to say is, like Dr. G said, if you ever have an issue, one thing I know for sure is, if you talk about it to the right people, it's going to be addressed. So if you have any questions, any concerns, anything you want to talk about to us or to the senior staff, please do, and I guarantee you it is going to be addressed in one way or the other. So can someone just give me one thing he learned or he's taking back from this discussion session today with the chief? He or she, I'm sorry. Just one thing someone learned today.
Just pick somebody.
Come on. No one?
You could zoom in this whole time. You could zoom in.
One thing for me that
Yeah.
was reiterated, something that I already knew, but again, I was reminded of, is the humanity of the officers that serve us. And I think while many of us feel that, although that officers can and should be held to a higher standard because they are in charge of our lives and given such a great responsibility. We do have to put into the perspective that they are still human, and so that the interactions that happen between us, again, although we are the civilian and they are the officer, it is still an interaction between two human beings at the same time. And so I think that's why it's such a hard thing to try and navigate, especially if you're not an officer, because you're not within that power. But at the same time, like I said, there is an imbalance of power, so they can and should be held to a greater standard than a civilian should be. But at the same time, we are all still humans interacting. So that's something we need to be cognizant of.
Anybody else?
Does anyone have any questions for the college president? Before she leaves?
How you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Okay, I forgot your name. Well, I want to address you, George.
So I'm gonna send you on a scavenger hunt.
Wait,
You have to find out the name of the college president.
so-
It's on there. Look at the screen.
My name is Avante once again, and I kind of just wanted you to kind of expatiate on the PDA role, so that, like you did mention in the beginning, you wanted me to address it in a general sense, and I would say over all adults. So, what really brought you guys to actually add that to the code? Actually, what?
The public displays of affection rule, because there are serious public displays of affection. That's exactly why. That, because quite frankly, this is a college campus. It's about your education. It really is not about what you see in each other from an intimate perspective. That's what your home is for. It is not for the college campus. I mean, I'm just being frank. I just want to be frank.
Any other questions before she leaves?
I'm not aggressive. I've been here, I've worked here at Prince George's Community College for 23 years. And my
that's older
previous
than me.
position at the Community College of Allegheny in Pittsburgh, I was there for 15 years. I have been the Dean of Students, and here I was the Vice President for Student Affairs for 12 years. So I have an extensive background in this work. We understand what happens here. I have witnessed it. I have asked people to cease and desist. I have had the displeasure of suspending students, of expelling students. I've seen it all, and well, no, I don't want to say that because you all might try to do something that I haven't seen. So I don't want you to do that. But quite frankly, it really is about what you're here for. And I don't want to say that you don't meet people here, that you form some sort of relationship with, that you find out that, you're destined to be together for life, but how you display that destiny intimately should not be on the college campus. This is not a residential facility, so you can't go back to your dorm room or your residence hall, and that's what I'm saying. Yes? Somebody has a mic for this young lady, you want to work with an Edward?
Hello guys, my name is good, how are you? My name is Liz Johnson. I have a question regarding PDA and the bill. Say if a person graduates from PGCC, will they still be able to use the facilities that the PDA wants?
When you graduate, you paid us everything you owe us, then you become a member of the larger community, and if you want to do something, you go through the scheduling office and you pay for the use of the space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? However, while you're here, it is working with the faculty and the staff. We expect that there will be some amazing facilities in that new building. You all know that we'll have 3 theaters. We'll have 3 recording studios, another television studio that supports those who are in TV communications, whatever, I don't know the official name of the major. So we certainly will work to ensure that our students, the internal community and the external community have the right utilization of space in the facility. Yes, ma'am. Mike.
Well, I wonder, as you saying, again, about the communication thing, it's hard for people to find, to.
Hold the mic up to your mouth.
It's hard for people to uphold a certain level of respect for people who lack professionalism. A lot of the staff members here at the college lack professionalism. I'll use, for example, I had a situation with a student and a teacher, and I reached out to someone who I thought that I could reach out to, and after doing
The process.
the process of handling the situation, I was told that that's someone who I could reach out to. However, when I reached out to them prior to being confirmed that I could speak with them about it, my email was ignored. They never returned the email. They never addressed the email afterwards. Like when I would see them in passing, they just would ignore it. But I could tell that they got the email, they just chose not to address it. So how can I,
Well, I would say that everyone reports to someone, right? Even I report to, where's my boss, the student member of the Board of Trustees. He is actually one of 9 people to whom I report. And I do get emails from students who say that they felt like they had no other recourse but to come to the president in order to at least get someone to listen to, understand, and hopefully resolve their issue. So what I would say to you is that everyone reports to someone. We have, if you go online, if you come in Kent Hall, what we refer to as the administration building, there are 5 vice presidents. And then those 5 people report directly to me. And we will always work. If you have to get to that level, then you are absolutely right that there's a problem. And there are 2 things we have to deal with. We have to deal with what your situation is and hoping to resolve it in a way that makes sense. It may not be the resolution a student is looking for, but it has to make sense upon gathering all the evidence. And then we have to go back and talk to the person who was supposed to help you in the first place. All right?
And then I've also watched like staff members cover up for one another.
Then I think that what you do is, like I said, then you keep going up the line. Because there is, we have an organizational structure, and that structure is even out on the website, and you just keep, if you believe that, I always say the president is really, because my job is to serve everyone. But that's what you do. We'll get you to the right person, and we'll certainly follow up with the person who was supposed to help you, and that's part of the investigatory process. My understanding, and I have the whole slew of emails this person sent to you. Can you tell me why you didn't respond to the person? Can you tell me if you were out of the office, why your out of office message was not on, so that that person could see that you were away for vacation or whatever, and you wouldn't be back for 3 or 4 months? The student says that he or she has seen you in the hallway and that you are actually looking the other way. Could you explain to me what's going on here? That's what our work is too. So now you all know my name.
After this,
Okay?
yeah.
Appreciate what you're saying.
Start.
And that's my boss.
Yeah, I'm gonna go table by
He gets
table.
to do my evaluation every year. So if you all want me to be here next year, talk to him. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was here at the last 2 discussions. I wanted to discuss about the dual enrollment program and how the money used for dual enrollment students can be used for other materials in the class.
How the money used for dual enrollment students can be used for?
Because we have an allowance for textbooks, why we can't use that allowance that they've given us for other materials in the class?
Well, because that is a public school decision. Dual enrollment, if you're currently in the public schools, there's a state law that says that public schools have the option of paying for your dual enrollment classes. The way we try to partner with our public school, Prince George's County Public School, is we charge the public schools 50% of the tuition rate. The public schools then says, if you want to participate in dual enrollment and you want us, because the law says we can, it doesn't say we have to, that we will pay for that participation in dual enrollment, then they can also tell you how you use the dollars. Now, we can go back and talk to the public schools about why your allotment can't be used for other things, but ultimately they make the decision. So what would be helpful for us, I don't know if Dr. Doss is not here, who coordinates our relationship, but is anybody else here on the dual enrollment sort of? So we'll ask Ms. Camp, the interim vice president for student affairs, if you talk with her, let her know what students would like to use it for, then we can take that back to our leadership meeting between the public schools and the community college. Okay, and I do recall you asked that question at the last meeting, and I thought we said we were going to get back to you with something. So, Paulette, Edward, thanks for allowing me to.
Thanks for coming. Hi everyone.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. How you doing today?
Great. How about you? Great.
I'm doing great. Moving on is my report about the work of SGA, what we do for you, the students. At the start of this year, SGA had a new program that's called the SGA Ambassadors Program. And basically this program, the aim of this program is to identify student leaders on the street team and actually give them the position of SGA ambassadors in order to represent SGA in the Senate. So we have an ambassador for every senatorial position. So every senator has a chance to have 2 ambassadors. Currently, we have one ambassador for special project and executive officer assistant, that is designated. We have an ambassador for community relations, Ms. Olua Johnson, and we have a student, Ms. Elvira Medina, who's putting her community logo. Next thing I want to talk about is the faculty evaluation committee. We had 2 students sit in that committee this year, and they did an awesome job. Basically, these students determine the type of questions that should be asked to students or other faculty in regards to the work that they do and in regards to their performance in classes. So Esme and Angel did a great job, and I received an email from the Department Chair of Information and Engineering Technology congratulating the students who are part of this committee. The Chief of Staff and Center of Academic Affairs were able to attend the community meetings because one of our goals this year is to get 25 students to attend Board of Trustees meetings and college-wide forum meetings. We've done a lot of progress in that regard, and we are very happy. And we also invite you, the students, to please attend these meetings because these are meetings where decisions are made that will affect you, the students. Approximately 90% of SGA committees have been filled, so almost all students in large positions have been
Hey, right now, we have flyers.
Did more college-wide foreign flyers? Were there any?
I think there's
You want to go grab some?
Our second goal, because we have 4 strategic goals this year, the second goal is to improve student academic experience. And in that regard, 3 weeks ago, SGA, myself, has been on the committee that's called the OER Committee for Educational Resources. And the goal of this committee really is to provide free course material to students from day 1 of registering the course. So the next step, and
Make sure someone takes these when they come.
Committee members, and Mr. Michael is here today. I asked him to provide us with a list of zero courses that will be made available to you, the students, during the spring 2019 semester. So when you go on there to register for your classes, any course with a connotation Z course should be a 0 cost course in terms of textbook.
We now have a Senator for Academic Affairs. His name is Ike Quinnipiac, and he will be in charge of every academic issue that relates to the students here on this campus. He is not here now because he has a class, but he will be joining us later on during this meeting. And you will have the chance to meet him. And if you have any issues in regards to academics or anything like that, please talk to him. Come to the office. We are open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 p.m. We got word from the dean, Dr. Foreman, who told us that the Pathways program would effectively start spring of 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a very great program because what it does really is it streamlines all the courses we've had so far into compact courses, such that you don't find yourself jumping from one major to another, but rather you follow a certain pathway that will get you out of here within the next 2 years. During last town hall meeting, if you recall, I talked about scheduling problems at University Town Center and Laurel College Center. I am not sure if you have received an email asking you to go through like a survey and tell us if you've ever had issues taking classes at University Town Center or LCC. Have y'all ever received such an email?
Only if you're enrolled in classes.
So that's been taken care of, and actually we'll provide the results of that survey to the senior team so that we can see exactly how we can solve the problems at these extension centers. Moving on to our third goal, which is to promote school pride and spirit. I have a great information for you guys. I got word from the Senator of Athletics, Tavon. I don't know if Tavon's in here today. Oh, so he can actually talk to us more about it. I'll just give him 2 minutes to tell us why games are free and how you can attend these games for free.
Hello, you all. My name is Tavon, SGA Center of Athletics. So what I've been told, because most people did think that we had to pay for a game, which I thought, being a student last year, I thought it was about $5 to $2, but yeah, actually it's free. All you have to do is have your student ID and make sure it says fall 2018, not fall 2017, because it won't be valid.
Thank you, Tamar. Did y'all hear him? You can now attend games for free. All you need is your student ID that says fall 2019 on it, and you attend the games for free. SGA currently has a scavenger hunt. I'm not sure if you all know about it, but really we want you to get to know your SGA officers as well as the resources that are on campus for you. And the top 3 winners will be raffled and given prizes to. I think it's gift cards. Gift cards, yeah. So if you are the winner for that scavenger hunt, you will potentially get a gift card. $25 gift card.
And the goal also is for the students to follow SGA on their social media so they can.
Did y'all know we have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook? And Snapchat?
It's like $50.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the gift card for the scavenger hunt is $50. It's not $25. So if you win the scavenger hunt, you get a $50 gift card.
What's the social media? What's your?
At PGCC SGA is our social media. So you will find us on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. This week is International Week, and we have flyers for the event. I think we have a big party tomorrow that's hosted by CAB and CSA, as well as OCEL. So the flyers will be going around. Can we share those flyers? Just share this. Also, currently we have our homecoming coming up in February, and Tavon again is the SGA representative on that committee. So if you ever have any suggestions to make, or if you want to see certain things happen during that homecoming, please talk to Tavon or talk to any SGA member. We appreciate your input, and that is what will make us give you the best experience. The fourth goal is to increase student awareness of campus opportunities and student involvement. So SGA will assist UNICEF